Let's pray. Agajanana Padmarkam Gajananam Aharnisham Anekadam Tam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Sahanavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Inner peace, peace in nature, peace from God's forces. Today, I won't be telling you any stories. I will be talking about a dialogue between Uma and Maheshwara. This appears in the Anushasan Parva. Anushasana means book of instructions, book of commands. And this appears in 3 sections. The first section, Ishvara talks about Varna Dharma. Second section, he talks about Ashrama Dharma. In the Varna Dharma, he talks about the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and Ashrama in the 4 ashramas that we have. And so he talks about those. I won't discuss that because much of that has been discussed in the Bhagavad Gita quite extensively. The one I want to talk about today is about Kaya, Vacha, Manasa, the effect of one's thoughts, one's words, and one's deeds on auspicious and inauspicious outcomes. He also talks about, in this dialogue, about the samsara and moksha, bondage and liberation. He also talks about dirghayushya, long lifespan, and alpayushya, short lifespan, how one's thoughts, words, and deeds influence one's course of life here. Very interesting dialogue. And in this particular section, you also see Shiva Sahasranama Stotram. This section also contains Vishnu Sahasranama Stotram. So it's a very unique parva in Mahabharata, wherein you have both Shiva Sahasranama and Vishnu Sahasranama. I haven't studied Shiva Sahasranama in detail, but I have the Vishnu Sahasranama. Hopefully somebody will study Shiva Sahasranama and discuss that during one of these Sundays. So this is the particular setup. Sri Krishna was having a lot of visitors, mostly sages and citizens who have come there to pay their respects to Sri Krishna. At that time, Narada, the celestial wanderer, celestial messenger, drops in. Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. And Sri Krishna welcomes him and asks him, well, you are a world traveler. What's going on? Tell me what you heard of late. Narada looks at him and says, this is what I heard from a great sage. This is the dialogue between Uma and Maheshwara, and I would like to share that dialogue with you from what I have heard. Sri Krishna says, yes, please go ahead. We are all waiting anxiously to hear your dialogue. So this is where the dialogue begins. Uma asks Maheshwara, Bhagavan Sarva Bhutesha Deva Sura Namaskrita Dharma Dharma Nurnam Deva Bruhime Samshayam Vibho. O Bhagavan, Lord of all living creatures, one who is worshipped by the celestials as well as the Rakshasas, please tell me the righteous and unrighteous ways of men. And then she continues, and she says, Kena shilena vrittena karmana kidrushena va samacharvai gunai kairva svargam yantiha manavaha. A man is comprised of his thoughts, words, and deeds. Manasa, Vacha, Kaya. These three are capable of binding him in samsara, as well as releasing him from the fetters of samsara. O Lord, tell me the characteristics of a man that takes him to heaven. Please elaborate on the character, karma, virtue, etc. that this particular man has. So these are the questions that Uma poses to Maheshwara. And Maheshwara answers, O Devi, you know dharma and you know truth. You are always engaged in righteous conduct. You are the one who has disciplined your senses. Your questions not only sharpen the mind, but also brings happiness to all beings. Listen to the appropriate answers. Maheshwara answers thus. One thing interesting that I noticed when I saw that was the respectful way in which Uma addresses Maheshwara, and equally respectful way Ishvara responds to Parvati. And this is something that struck me. We have to keep this in mind. When we talk about other people, I think it would be important for us to focus on their positive aspects rather than on the negative aspects of the flaws. We all have good things going for us, and we all do certain things that are not to the likings of others. But I think in talking about others, it is better to focus on their positive qualities rather than name calling and deriding and not appropriate. So that's one thing that this introduction, Uma's questions and Maheshwara's answers say, both of them are very respectful of each other. So the message that I take from that is that we should be respectful of others all the time. Then Maheshwara says, they go to heaven who enjoy the riches obtained by honest, righteous means, have no selfish desires, they are constantly engaged in truthful and righteous conduct. Heaven is Swarga, is what we call. Opposite to heaven is Naraka or hell. In the mythology, if you read that Swarga is somewhere between the sun and the North Star. It is ruled by Indra, and he is the gatekeeper, and he gives you a temporary accommodation when the time comes, and after your vacation is over, you're sent back to wherever you're supposed to go. Naraka, on the other hand, is a place where you go full of grief, full of sorrow. So that is designated for a short-term vacation, if you like, for those people who are not of righteous conduct, who have done awful things in their lives. But in my view, heaven and hell, Swarga and Naraka, right here. Very often, sometimes when people ask, how did you sleep? You say, oh, it was heavenly. So we created a heaven when we were asleep. And then how was the food? Oh, heavenly. So when we talk of heaven in the colloquial language, what we mean is that we have no desires. All of our desires and all of our wants have been fulfilled. So we are content, trupti. We are completely content. So anytime you are completely content, you're happy, that is Swarga. Anytime you have grief, you have suffering, you have sorrow, then that is Naraka. So you can think in terms of our own lives, what we call as heaven and what we call as hell. We can create our own heaven, we can create our own hell. So when we think of heaven, where there is always happiness, as we have heard many times before from Dr. Sane, Professor Rambachan, and Swami Dayananda and others, Tattvamasi. So when we become aware that we are that, so we are awareness in our real nature. Our nature is that Sat Chit Ananda. So we are always happy. Happiness is our nature. We just don't know it because of avidya. So when we think in terms of getting an object to make us happy, we think the happiness is in the object. If the happiness were to be in the object, then it should exist in that object forever. Sooner or later, we get tired of the object, we look for something else to give us the happiness. So happiness is really not in the object. Happiness is you. So Swarga is you. And you because of avidya, you make your life, which is really Swarga, into one of hell, or which is Naraka. So that is my understanding in my own life as to what Swarga means, what Naraka means. Those who have conquered their doubts know about the creation and dissolution of the universe, and who are wise and are equanimous are not bound either by dharma or adharma. He is here talking about a perfect man. We have seen the characteristics of a perfect man, sthita prajna. Sthita prajna means one who is well established in consciousness. Such a divine person, he has conquered all the doubts. He knows he has no doubts. He knows about the creation and dissolution of the universe. That is, he knows about the nimitta karana and upadana karana. Ishvara, who created this universe, and Vishnu, who preserves it, and Ishvara, who finally dissolves it. G-O-D. G is the generator, O is the organizer, and D is the destroyer. Generator is Brahman, organizer is Vishnu, and destroyer is Shiva. One who understands this, he is a person who is not bound by dharma or adharma, because he is beyond all, because he does not have the doership in him, and therefore no karma attaches to him. They are released from the fetters of karma, who do not harm any creature by thought, word, and deed, and who have been released from the dualities of likes and dislikes. So here he is talking about the Ishwararpana Buddhi, that is Kayena Vacha, Manasendriyeva, Buddhyatmanava, Prakriti Swabhavat, Karomi Yadyat Sakalam Parasmai, Narayanayat Samarpayami. One who has the Ishwararpana Buddhi, that is one who does everything as a service to the Lord, and one who has the Prasada Buddhi, accept the results that come out of your effort as a prasada, as a gift, as a grace from God. Such a person, as Sri Krishna says, is truly a karma yogi. A karma yogi does not have the fetters of karma attached to him. And he has gone beyond the likes and dislikes. So he takes whatever comes as a prasada from God. Neither does he enjoy too much when things go for him, nor does he wallow in sorrow when things go against him. Such a person has a balanced mind, Sita Prajna, and that person, Shiva says, is free from samsara. They are released from the fetters of karma, who have conquered their desires. They are non-violent, they are possessed of sterling character, they are compassionate, They treat both friends and foes alike and have mastery over their senses. Here, possessed of sterling character means Sheila is the word that is used. Sheila is a very suggestive word. And it's very hard to describe. It's something that you see in a person, but you can't put words to it. So a person who is free from the fetters of karma, they have conquered their desires. They're non-violent. They're compassionate. And as we have discussed before, once you have the Tattvamasi understanding, when you have the knowledge that you are that, then you are automatically compassionate because you see yourself in others, you see others in yourself. They treat both friends and foes alike and have mastery over their senses. These are all the characteristics of a perfect man, as we have seen before. Those who are kind to all living beings and who participate in their well-being and who have completely renounced all violence, they go to heaven. Not only ahimsa, which is a very powerful word, but an active participation in their well-being as well. It's not just enough to say, I don't want to harm other living creatures, whether they be plants or animals or insects, but you have to be actively participating in their protection. For example, setting up bird feeders, wood duck homes, caring for wetlands and habitat and the environment, all of them come under this rubric of heaven on earth. That is what we should be doing, is what Ishvara says. Those who don't eye on another's property, those who abstain from lust for others' wives, and those who live by the rules of righteousness, they go to heaven. Here, he is talking about giving up or eschew desire, greed, and adharma. Those who consider an elderly woman as their own mother and a younger woman as their own sister, they go to heaven. Here he is talking about respecting women, both young and old. If women are not respected in their own home, you don't expect the children to grow up to respect women, both young and old. So it's very important that Ishvara says that you must show respect to the elders. In general, we say show respect to the elders. How do we do that? When an elder walks into the room and you're sitting, you automatically stand up and then you touch their feet, seeking their blessings. So you don't sit at the same level as the elders. So respect women, both young and old, and then your children will also grow up to be respectful, not only of women, but of elders. Those noblemen who are not into stealing and who are content with the wealth they have, who live within their means, they go to heaven. Here he is talking about the emphasis on individual responsibility. And he says life is a privilege and not an entitlement. You can think about this, that whatever you earn by lawful means, if you're content with what you have earned with lawful means and not pry your eyes on somebody else's property, engage in shenanigans about stealing others' property or making money in an illegal way, he says, then you're not going to heaven, you're creating your own hell. So you're not into stealing, you're content. Contentment is trupti. That is very important. It has always been emphasized in our scriptures that you cannot be happy unless you're content. Be content with the wealth that you have earned by lawful means. And then you live within your means. Live within your means is do not try to compare yourself with your neighbor. My neighbor has got a boat. I also want to get a boat. Even though I can't afford it, I'll somehow try to get the boat. And leave that. That is not contentment. I'm not saying you shouldn't be ambitious. Don't get me wrong. One should be ambitious. But then one should direct their ambition, the effort, in proper ways, not in illegal ways. Those men who are committed to their wives only, monogamous, who engage in intimacy only at the appropriate times, and who are not interested in mundane happiness and enjoyment brought about by lustful living, they go to heaven. Here he is emphasizing self-control. Control your mind, control your senses, be very careful. Men of sterling character who have mastery over the senses and to turn a blind eye to the vice of others go to heaven. Here is a warning to us. Maheshwara is saying to us, behave yourself. Unless animals who act on instinct, you have a choice in your behavior. You can exercise choice in your behavior unlike an animal. So always be cautious, be aware of this choice that you possess and use it wisely. O Devi, these canons are laid out by the celestials themselves. Men should follow this path only and not any other path. The path that is paved with clarity, with charity, dana, righteousness, dharma, austerity, tapas, character, shila, purity, shaucha, and kindness, daya. So for a noble life and acquiring merits, punya, and men must follow this path only. There is no better way for those who aspire for a life in heaven. So if you want to create a peaceful life for yourself, that is, you want to create a heaven for yourself, you must imbibe the above 6 virtues and lead a life governed by these. Then you're truly a noble person, is what Ishvara says. You're better than the one who follows rituals but leads a life of adharma. Going to the temple is fine. Performing rituals is fine. They're important indeed, but they amount to nothing if your life has none of the above 6 virtues. So it's very important to have these 6 virtues. They are dana, dharma, tapas, shila, shaucha, and daya. Charity, righteousness, austerity, character, purity, and kindness. And Uma says, O Mahadeva, Lord of all beings, what kind of speech gets a man entangled in samsara? What kind of speech releases him from samsara? Please tell me the karmas associated with speech. Notice that speech is just but a manifestation of one's thoughts. So when she talks about speech here, she's also talking about what you are thinking. I think, I say. I think, I say. I formulate my thoughts and then I express that in terms of words. And so she is asking the question, what kind of speech is important for a man? Maheshwara says the following. Those who do not tell a lie, either for selfish reasons or others, those who do not tell a lie for deriving personal enjoyment, they go to heaven. We tell a lie very often to cover up something that we have done, and we don't want anybody else to know what we have done, so tell a lie. Or we tell a lie to project an image that we are not. Lies in the form of gossip for personal enjoyment is very often. This is why Walter Scott said, oh, what a tangled web we weave when at first we start to deceive. So one lie leads to another lie, and before long, you have no idea what the real truth is. There are times in life when we find ourselves in a quandary, dithering over whether to utter the truth or refrain from uttering the truth. In certain circumstances, telling the truth could spark an unsavory effect. But telling an untruth may mean going against your self-dictated principles. Here I am reminded of a verse that goes like this, a statement. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat, satyam apriyam, priyam cha nanutram, priyam cha nanrutam bruyat. Yesha dharma sanatanaha. Speak the truth that is pleasant. Never speak the truth that is unpleasant. And never speak the untruth, even if it is pleasant. This is eternal philosophy of righteousness. So when we talk about Satyam Bruyat, Priyam Bruyat, speak the truth that is pleasant. This is when you shower genuine compliments on people over some good quality in them. Here you are speaking the truth, besides creating pleasant effect on the mind of compliment recipients. The second line says, never speak the truth that is unpleasant. Here's an interesting story. There was a king who was interested in knowing his future. So he calls one of his astrologers, and the astrologer comes and looks at his horoscope and looks at his palm and says with a very dull, sad face, and then he says, "O king, miserable, miserable, miserable. All of your kith and kin are going to die right before your eyes." The king was very depressed to hear that, very depressed. The truth, he was very depressed. The truth hurts. So he dismisses him. And he said, let me call another astrologer and confirm if this is really true. So he calls the second astrologer, and he comes there. He tweaks the truth a little bit and says he has a big smile on his face. "Oh, king, you're so fortunate. Oh, you're so lucky." The king was very happy when he heard that. He said, what do you mean? He says, you have a very long lifespan compared to all of your relatives. Feeling overjoyed, the king offered princely remuneration to the second person. So both of them were speaking the truth, one of them in unpleasant way, another one in a pleasant way. The third sentence says, never speak untruth, even if it is pleasant. If you are telling untruth, even if it is pleasant, what it means is you are fawning over influential folks so as to wring out favors from them for your own personal benefit. So here's a modern example of speaking an untruth, even if it is pleasant. We all know what happened January 6th. There was a mob of people who rioted the Capitol. It's called insurrection. That's the truth. And then you cannot make it pleasant by sugarcoating it, by saying it's a legitimate political discourse. It's a legitimate political discourse. It looks very nice, doesn't it? But it is not the truth. It's a lie. A lie is a lie, no matter how you sugarcoat it. Finally, we should remember whether it is the truth, a tweaked truth, or untruth, our words do reflect our inner persona and principles, besides creating varied impacts. That's why it is said, what all we think, we need not have to utter. But what we all utter, we need to think. Anything that you think, you don't have to utter. But if you say something, you better think about what you are saying. Bhagavad Gita makes it very clear in chapter 17, verse number 15. The speech which causes no excitement, which is truthful, pleasant, and beneficial, and also the practice of sacred recitation. These are said to form the austerity of speech. So when you speak, be gentle and calm in your speech, is what this verse says. You convey the same message without causing undue alarm. You don't cause anxiety in other people by your speech. Supposing you are at work and your wife calls you on the phone, you are actually looking at some budget problems at work, and then your mind is occupied with the balance sheet. The telephone rings and you pick it up. And then you hear your wife say in a very excited voice, "Oh, guess what? Our son's principal called us today, just called home. Oh, I want to convey an important message." So the guy who was working in the office his mind was totally perturbed. Something must have gone wrong. Our son must have done something really bad. And so let me brace for the bad news. And then the wife said, "Relax, don't get upset. He was awarded a prize for excellence in math and physics. And you calm down. Don't get excited." Then the husband calmed down and heaved a big sign of relief. On the other hand, the wife could have called and said, "Honey, I'm very happy to tell you the good news." That would have put him under normal life, not get excited. Speech should not excite other people. It should be calm. There are truths that are unpleasant to hear and lies that are pleasant to hear. If the truth hurts, at least adopt a pleasant way to express it. Tell the truth, and do not deviate from the truth just to be pleasant. If the situation is such that your perception of truth puts a lot of people in jeopardy, you're better off keeping quiet. You can convey a message in a pleasant manner. Instead of saying you're an aviveki, you're good for nothing, try saying this. You know, you've been working very hard. I see a lot of potential in you. If you do your work calmly and follow some of the instructions that I've given you, you will succeed. But put in your effort. You would help the individual without causing undue excitement. So there are ways of saying we have not saying. And to talk about truth not hurting other people, we have heard this story before of a Muni who was staying in an ashram, and a young girl ran by him. She was panting, she was crying, and then the Muni saw her go behind his hut, his ashram. Soon after, the 3 or 4 ruffians start running towards the same ashram and ask the Muni, "Hey Muni, did you say a young girl run past here?" And the Muni said, "I am wedded to truth. I have taken a vow never to tell a lie. I'll tell you the truth. Yes, I saw the young girl and she is behind the ashram." And so the ruffians caught hold of the young girls, and then God knows what they did with her. But here is a situation where the Muni could have kept his mouth shut. "I am in deep meditation." "What do you mean?" "I saw, what are you doing in my ashram? What's a girl going to do in my ashram?" He could have avoided that. But in order to preserve his ego, he had to tell the truth to hurt the other people. So when you say something truthful, even if it is truth, be careful it doesn't hurt a lot of other people. Sometimes truth told in a pleasant way may have no effect. You have to assess that too. Vidura, for example, was very pleasant in his words when he warned Duryodhana of the consequences of his web of lies. If you are privy to information about somebody else, and you know for a fact the information is true, you must exercise great caution before discussing in public. Talk to the person first so that he may mend his ways. If your information, when made public, hurts a lot of innocent people, it is better to keep quiet. Do not make the cure worse than the disease. In particular, do not divulge the information if you feel happy by seeing the other person squirm in shame and discomfort. So our speech has a lot to do. The following poem by William Edward Norris, he's a journalist, summarizes nicely what I think I've been saying. If your lips would keep from slips, 5 things observe with care. Of whom you speak, to whom you speak, and how, and when, and where. If your lips would keep from slips, 5 things observe with care. Of whom you speak, to whom you speak, and how, and when, and where. So if you remember this, a particular thing, then I think we should be okay. Those who do not tell a lie for the sake of their own living and to acquire wealth go to heaven. And here is warning about scam artists. They're always weaving a tale of woe to elicit sympathy and collect money from you. So be careful. Those who speak friendly and pleasant words, and words that cause no anxiety, with an attitude of cordiality, they go to heaven. Let your words not inspire fear or anxiety in others, is what Ishvara is saying. Those noblemen who do not speak unkind and harsh words and accusatory words go to heaven. Here he is cautioning us about backbiting, slanderous speech, impudence, impertinence, insolence, effrontery, discourteous, uncivil behavior. So all of that should be eschewed. So you have to be very careful in how you speak. Those who do not speak words that cause a rift between 2 friends, and those who speak truthful words with a friendly attitude go to heaven. Those who have renounced harsh words that cause mental anguish in others, who do not harbor any ill will against others, and treat all beings with an equal eye, such noble people who have mastery over the senses go to heaven. Treating others with equal eye, Samadarshi. We've always seen that Samadarshi. Pandita, a Pandita is a Samadarshi. You see the same in a Chandala, in a human being, in a butcher, and everything else. Those who do not speak arrogantly, who renounce words that cause enmity, those who are always pleasant in demeanor and speak pleasantly, they go to heaven. Those who do not speak angry words that cause heartache and speak comforting words, though angry, they go to heaven. A child makes a mistake, picks up a bottle and drops it on the floor. There are 2 ways you can react. One way would be to get mad and yell at the kid. The other way would be, okay, come here, we can clean it up. Why don't you help me clean it up? Come here, it's okay. Comforting words, but you can convey the same message. Instead of yelling at the child, you can use comforting words. Devi, these are the things about speech. All people must follow the dharma associated with speech. The wise must renounce completely telling deliberate lies. The wise must renounce completely telling deliberate lies. Very important thing for us to remember, particularly in this current political situation. We have to remember that the wise must renounce completely telling deliberate lies. So this is the thing associated with speech. He spends a lot of time in talking about speech because sometimes our words can really hurt other people and really make them sad and sorrowful. And we have to be very careful. This does not mean it's a sugarcoat, but you have to use appropriate words at the appropriate time and the appropriate place. There's a place for everything, and speech is very important. And Parvati says, "O Devadeva, what kind of mind binds a man to samsara? Please enlighten me on this." Maheshwara says, I'll simply read the English translation instead of reading the original Sanskrit verse. Those who constantly think of dharma and act accordingly go to heaven. Listen to my thoughts on this. So if you lead a righteous life, we have seen a number of times before examples of virtuous living. We have talked about those 6, dana, dharma, and shila before. A man with an evil mind tends to do evil acts. Let me tell you what imprisons the mind. Your mind is very key to your speech. The mind is the key to your action. Therefore, let me tell you about the mind. One who does not entertain the thought of taking things that do not belong to him, though it is found in an uninhabited forest, such one goes to heaven. This is not asteya. That means not craving for the property of others. If you were to find a lost wallet on the street, hand it over to the proper authorities. That's what we teach our young children. If you find something which does not belong to you, don't just pocket it. Go to an elder and tell them where you found it. Maybe they'll be able to find the appropriate owner and return it. So don't usurp what does not belong to you. That is a primary message that we should carry. One whose mind does not encourage to usurp the property belonging to others, whether it be found in a village, a house, or an uninhabited place, such one goes to heaven. When he says such a one goes to heaven, as I said before, such a one does not have any sorrow, any grief. Such a one is always happy. Similarly, if one encounters a woman in a lonely place and does not entertain even the thought of taking advantage of her, such a one goes to heaven. Here he is talking about earlier he talked about how we should be respectful of elderly women, respectful of younger women. Here he is talking about we should be respectful of the rights of women and not take advantage of them like damsel in distress. One who is friendly to all, one who gets along well with others, one who is the same to both friend and foe, such a one goes to heaven. Here he is talking about what we talked about in Bhagavad Gita, Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam, Maitraha Karuna Evacha, Nirmamo Nirahankarha, Samadukha Sukha Kshami. One who has no enmity, harbors no enmity, one who has a friendly disposition, and one who has no ego, one who is both a friend, one who is same to both a friend and foe, such a person is my bhakta, he says. That's a person is a one who goes to heaven. One who is well versed in scriptures, who is kind, who is wedded to truth, and who is content with what he has, such a one goes to heaven. We have seen that before. One does not harbor enmity with others. One does not crave for the bodily pleasures. One who has good and friendly heart. One who is kind to all animals, such a one goes to heaven. Again, the same sentiments. One who has faith, who is kind, who is pure of heart, who is in the company of good people, and who knows about dharma and adharma, such a one goes to heaven. We have seen this before. Always to have satsang, association with good people, is important to maintain your balance of mind. And faith is important. Faith is accept and verify until you verify it for yourself. That is what faith is. Without faith, nothing will happen. I've told you the story about faith. I have great faith in Dr. Sani, and I used to travel a lot in my younger days, and I would get sick when traveling by plane. So I asked him, I'm going to go to China. It's a long flight. And what do you recommend? oh, there's a medication that I'm going to give you. You take one pill exactly 1 hour before you fly, and your flight should be smooth as silk. So he asked me a pharmacy. I gave a cup food pharmacy close to our home. And then I went and told them there's a prescription by Dr. Sane. I want to pick it up. And for some reason, the pharmacist had a smile on his face, and he handed me the prescription. It had exactly 2 tablets, only 2 tablets. One tablet to take on the way to Beijing, another tablet to take on the return trip. I followed the instructions because I have faith in Dr. Sane and took a glass of water 1 hour before I took a pill. My flight was fantastic. It was no problem whatsoever. Coming back, I had no problem whatsoever. After the return, Dr. Sane asked me, how did your flight go? Did the medication help? I said, yes, it really helped. Then he had a sort of smile on his face, mischievous smile, I would say. Prasanna, you know what I gave you? 2 calcium tablets. so I laughed. I laughed and laughed and laughed. And so that's what faith is. If I didn't have faith in what he told me, that would never have happened. So important to have faith. One who is honest, one who is treading a path of justice, who is engaged in the worship of celestials, they go to heaven. Here he is talking about the same thing, importance of being honest in your life, importance of owning up to your mistakes and pursuing a path of justice, and also be worshipful. Oh, dearest one, I've told you about those who, by performing auspicious deeds, go to heaven. What else would you like to know? Parvati said, O Maheshwara, I have this doubt about people. You must answer with proficiency, I pray. O Prabhu, by performing what actions does one is blessed with a long life? By performing what austerities does one gain a long life? Dirghayush. Dirghayush means long life. Alpayush means short life. O God of gods, by performing what actions does one have a shortened lifespan? Alpayush. Please tell me the results of performing auspicious and inauspicious actions. There are a few in this world who are endowed with good fortune. Some are very unlucky. Some are born in noble families. Some are born in families given to wicked ways. Some are ugly, inspiring fear, and not so handsome. They are such that one do not want to look for a long time. Some have a wicked mind. Some are very learned. Others are well versed in scripture and knowledge and practice. Some look as though they are in some difficulty. Some look as though they are mired in great difficulties. What is the reason for the disparity? Here she is again portraying a panorama of life that we see, so much of disparity from various angles that you might want to think about. And she wants to know the reason why. Why is that great such disparity? Ishvara said, Devi, I will tell you the difference in the results of karma. I will also tell you how people fructify their karma. Devi, the one who is always cruel to animals with a stick in his hand, who kills animals with weapons, who has no compassion toward them, who constantly causes anxiety to them, who does not provide shelter even to small insects. And such a cruel person falls into hell. Here again, he is talking about ahimsa. Notice that he is talking about cruel to animals with a stick in his hand, that is beating them for no reason, who kills animals with weapons, whether with a bow and arrow or with a rifle. One who is kind and compassionate to animals will be born with great beauty. The one who is always engaged in cruelty to animals will be despised and killed by others when he is reborn. He will have a short lifespan also. So one who practices himsa has a short lifespan, is what Ishvara is saying. One who is practicing himsa, not ahimsa. One who is wedded to ahimsa will have a long lifespan. One who is wedded to himsa or causing suffering to other animals will have a short lifespan. One who is kind to animals goes to heaven. One who is cruel to animals falls into hell. They will experience great pain and suffering. Having fallen into hell, he will have a very short lifespan if he were to be born as a human being again. Those who are obsessed with cruelty to animals are reborn with a very short lifespan due to their karma. As opposed to this, the one who is kind to animals, who does not kill them, who has renounced violence against all, who does not goad others to kill, who does no harm to animals, such a one attains the celestial regions. He will enjoy all there is to enjoy in that region. If such a one were to be reborn as a human being, he will have a healthy, happy, and a prosperous lifespan that tends to be long. This is the distinctive mark of one possessed of good conduct. This path is attainable to those who abandon cruelty to animals. To attain this status of Brahman and realize the truth, discipline of the senses, austerity, charity, non-violence, and treading the path of dharma are important. Lineage and caste are not important. This you find in Mahabharata Vanaparva. Satyam, Daman, Tapodanam, Ahimsa, Dharma Nityata, Sadhakani Sada Vumpam, Najatir, Nakulam Brupa. So, to which family you are born in is not important, but it's very important to have all of these good qualities. So that concludes the discussion on the dialogue between Uma and Maheshwara. And I chose this particular one because I was intrigued by the way Parvati addressed Ishvara very respectfully, and the respectful way Ishvara addressed Parvati, and the types of questions that she asked, which we all have in our own minds. And important thing that we take from this is that you can create your own heaven by your thoughts, words, and deeds, or you can create your own hell by your thoughts, words, and deeds. And the choice, as the dialogue shows, is entirely up to us. So we can be creators of our own heaven or our own hell. So that's the message that we need to take. Thank you. If you have any comments or questions, please go ahead.
Hey, Prasanna.
Yeah.
I enjoyed your presentation greatly. And I think what's important to remember is when the dialogue like this is being studied by us, we should remember it's not that the Uma had any difficulties in understanding the subject matter. As a matter of fact, a good speaker many times would ask questions of himself many times when he's speaking, basically to create a reaction in the audience to understand some difficult topics. So again, so important that you stress the value of respectfulness to our family members, especially your spouses, and make the presentation that you did. So it was a wonderful dialogue between husband and wife. Of course, his Parameshwar's Shakti is, of course, Uma. So thank you.
Thank you, Shashi, for your kind words. Yeah, go ahead, Naina.
Okay. A little while ago, I mean, I don't know, I think a long while ago, Dr. Sane had, what is a Sthita Prajna? All right. And it came to almost 1.5, 2 pages. And that is something I had on my refrigerator for many, many years. And then, of course, going between Florida and Minnesota, I misplaced it. But maybe I'll ask for something like that again if he still has a copy. But that was a great explanation, and it was very much what you were saying also. So, you're both Gurujis who speak with the same tongue. First of all, I'd like to compliment both of you. But I do have a question. And that is, when you spoke about that Muni who did not protect that girl who was in, I am very uncomfortable with people who think they are very truthful and honest, and yet they don't have the big picture of what it is to be a good human being. So I do not think of a lie as opposite of Sat. I think of Sat in such a bigger way than just truth and lie. And that's why I'm very uncomfortable with dogmatic religions that have certain rules that you must follow and literally follow. So I am very uncomfortable with literalness. So what I'm saying is there's so many examples of people who have thrown themselves into something like, the French resistance, for instance, to protect others, or to unspeaking lies, or, Anne Frank, whoever turned her in, spoke the truth, but, ultimately it was not righteous or dharmic. So I'm careful about that distinction. But, that's it's only because of the literalness.
Yeah.
It's just that Sat is such a big thing in our religion. It's everything. Dharma, Sat. Sat is the first thing. Sat, Chit, Ananda. it is. So I just want to make sure that Sat is not the opposite of a lie.
Yeah.
So.
It's a very good point. This reminds me when our children are growing up, as parents, you always give them advice. And children don't like too much of advice. If you keep on telling them, don't do that, don't do this, they get bored and they don't pay any attention to you. And so when they were ready to go to college, my advice to them was the following: you can do anything you want, absolutely no restrictions. You don't have to ask my permission. Do anything you want. So they all smiled. My goodness, what a great gift your dad has given. Except for one thing. They said, what? Don't do anything that will make your mother cry. Then they fell and said, oh, that doesn't give us very, very much of choice, does it? I said, that's exactly, you decide. Whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it, but make sure it doesn't make your mother cry. So what I'm trying to say is what you said, that in whatever that we say, whatever that we do, we should always keep in mind whether it is hurting a lot of other people, innocent people. And then we should eschew from that type of action. Very good point. Thank you, Naina.
Prasanna, I think if I can add on to your comments and Naina's comments, I think you must remember in our faith tradition, these values that Prasanna was emphasizing this morning, these universal values are not absolute. So it's called sthiti, sthita, kala, paristhiti. So it depends upon the situation, the times where you're living in, and the surroundings where you are located. So your answer, which is truthful, has to be placed according to a situation that you're in. So his criticism of this Muni, for which he did subsequently suffer after his death, is the fact that he should have given the answer where the young lady did not get hurt. So what I'm trying to say is that just one point, universal values are not absolute. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exercise your caution.
Hey, Prasanna, I want to add one more thing for you. I think you told the story about me giving you some pills to travel safely without any problems. But I think as a good doctor, you have to remember, you advise that only after you know that there is no other problem that you can diagnose. So that I'm not trying to say that every person who has that difficulty has to necessarily be given that. But once you judge after discussing with the individual that the problem is mostly psychosomatic, then you can give those kind of treatments. So for you,
Thank you.
And that is called a placebo effect, right?
Yeah,
Mind
placebo
over
effect.
matter, right?
Yeah.
it's not placebo, it's Shraddha.
Yeah.
Right.